Philosophers talk to our times. So I reckon it happens once every 20 years. A panopticon event. To remind you, the concept of the panopticon comes from Discipline and Punish, ultimately from Jeremy Bentham. And Jeremy Bentham hypothesized that the perfect sort of organ for disciplining individuals was a massive factory in which they could be watched all the time. A factory for human souls, I mean. A circular building then, with endless cells, all blind to each other, but that looked out upon a single tower like a tooth, in which there was a certain number of wardens. And the way it was arranged was, of course, that the wardens could always watch and learn and discipline the prisoners. But the prisoners never knew whether they were being watched at all. And so for the warders, they both disciplined and learnt at the same time. So for the prisoners, they never knew when they were being observed and had to learn to internalize the discipline for fear of the gaze that was looking upon them. One of the things then about the panopticon is that it creates a different way of seeing. Seeing becomes acute, each individual, one by one. Careers are built up for those individuals in the light of those observations. They're turned then into criminals, into types, into delinquents, and their delinquency classified and delimited, so that when they leave the panopticon, even if they are not well-trained individuals, everybody knows who and what they are, particularly who themselves. So it is in the panopticon they become truly what they can be and what they will be in that society. They learn their delinquency. There is a picture that always haunts me when I think about the panopticon from Discipline and Punish, of a prisoner turning in a prison to worship the central tower, the observation tower, as if it was a god, as his fate falls from it. So, once every 20 years, our modern dystopias, for how else do we understand it, seem to feel the need to invent a different sort of panopticon, as technology shifts and we become opened up in new and exciting ways. And so when, from in the 1980s, I shall be a little vague, the panopticon vision was all the microcomputer. And one of the things about all these panopticonic moves is they all involve a technology that increases the power of one aspect of society, but also of the wider state, so that you get an unholy alliance between a set of corporations and the overall power axis of the state. That's the first aspect, I think I would say, of them. The second aspect is that they are always, if not universally unpopular, selectively unpopular. Their sale is never easy. People resent the new way they are being made visible, seeable. Third, that they are always sold as some kind of boon to humanity. There's always a story, a legend that somehow this will make us all somehow more free. Fourth, they are often supported by exactly the same people. So exactly the same people, the same right-wing pundits and evangelicals, be they evangelical atheists or evangelical Christians, get caught up in supporting the same set of each generation of panopticon. And fourth, the panopticons invariably hide themselves in philosophical events. Hide themselves in philosophical chit-chat. They always become a topic for the table in middle-class houses, so that we can talk about whether we like them or whether we don't. And so, over my 57 years, the panopticons I have lived on is first, of course, the invention of the microcomputer. If you didn't live the introduction of the computer, just a simple basic computer, you won't know how much it shook society, how much it changed what governments could do. So the government that came into power in 1979 and the Thatcher who left power in 1990, 91, could do radically different things. The governments they were leading, the kind of data they could process, how they could supervise individuals. One of the reasons I always felt that monetarism took over was that it actually sold. It became the language by which we understood the new technology that set individuals free, that created the Big Bang and deregulated the city. That created an entire different ways to understand how society was financed. Not because of monetarism or anything essential like that, but simply because the technology had shifted, had changed. The microchip had changed everything. There's a lovely speech by Jim Hacker in the British sitcom Yes Minister, where he makes the same speech to two different organisations. And the first line is, "The microchip is changing our daily lives." And yet, of course, it created huge amounts of social dysfunction as jobs disappeared. Entire professions went overnight. It shook things up. It changed the world. It rendered individuals more visible in that statistics could be managed differently, understood afresh. It was sold as a boon, and all the little boys were given their microchips, were allowed to buy their BBC or ZX81 or ZX80 computers. But the power was not really in the boon it gave individuals, but the far greater way it rendered them more visible to the state. And then 20 years ago, of course, it was all about genes. And the great panopticon event, the reading of the human genome, in which all of human destiny would be caught. We were sold a story that we were going to be able to have personalised medicine. We would just plug our finger in. It would read our blood. And the doctor would know what and how to prescribe for us there and then. But of course, it was never really about that. The real story of the human genome and the Human Genome Project was a hope by insurance companies who were driving this, American insurance companies, I mean, that they could define risk and therefore create people who they didn't need to insure. They could create a proper sort of poverty, a genetic, inherited poverty. One that would last, cascading down the generations, so that some people would find it in the end simply too difficult to breed at all. It was an uncomfortable world they were promising us. Or the other great people who thought they were endlessly going to gain from the gene industry was, of course, the seed manufacturers, as the traits that made certain tomatoes last longer on supermarket shelves became visible for all to replicate. Supermarkets then would be able to produce genuinely plasticated food that would last forever, and they wouldn't have to waste anything, which would of course be sold as a boon, but really just help the profits of the large supermarkets. So we were promised a pipe dream, but in the end, what we actually were being offered really was regulation. And in that battle, you get exponents for the gene and the importance of the gene. I mean people like Dawkins. I mean people who were looking to the gene as the solution to the world's problems, who said God lies in the gene, in this apotheosis. And of course, imposed as it was from elsewhere, driven by corporate control, it created, in Europe at least, endless resentment. And you get the European Union fighting against it, declaring Frankenstein foods illegal. And you get the endless debating topics upon the table. If we render all humans visible, what then? The same dream, then, of a panopticon. Something that will make us all totally visible, one to the other. A light that will see into our souls. That was never quite that simple. That never quite did what it said it would do. Because one of my experiences of the panopticons I have lived in my life is that they create delinquency. They create, but then they create delinquency, sure, but they don't, but they never achieve what they promise to achieve. They never breed the disciplined individual. They merely create certain new categories that could not be thought before. I think that bit is complicated because it isn't too entirely clear to me, sitting 20 years on later in France, what it was, what legacy genes left us for all their panoptic power. Finally, of course, we are living through the next major drive of the panopticon. The next time that history repeats itself, I mean, of course, AI. And all the politics are there. Once again, the prophets of the panopticon are saying, this will make us all free. We'll just have computers that will know everything about us. And isn't that wonderful? Oh, and by the way, Dawkins says they're conscious. In the same way that I once thought genes would rule the world, or did rule the world. The same powers, then, lord this marvellous new creation. And what is the point of the creation? But to render humans utterly visible. To strip them of the information of their lives. To create for them a profile. To force them down blind alleys so that they become easy to control. To create a world where you can label half your population. As the American current administration is doing, half your population, domestic terrorists, so that you can police them, gather data on them, learn from them, render them visible to this panopticon. What is the modern panopticon then but a way of manufacturing modern delinquency? People who could be endlessly pried, watched, researched, learned from. And the difference between now and, 40 years ago, is that the computer power exists to do that. Oh, not in the whole. It's still got to have search programs, but that's what AI is for. It's a way of sifting us. Each time you log on, each time you use it, it's sifting you a bit, deciding whether you are delinquent or not, learning things about your nature, looking at your face and going, it's you. You're going this way, my friend. It becomes then a modern panopticon, one that lies very close, that we're being sold as our close plastic buddy. Sure as the prison worshipped, the prison yard, the central tower of the prison, this panopticon watches us. And of course, again, it becomes a philosophical moment of debate. The debate has nothing to do with actually what is happening. The debate, of course, is the ethics of human consciousness and whether robots are going to wipe us out. Oh, they are. Absolutely. Because they're not, but not the way you think they are. They're going to wipe you out by changing what it is to be human, in the same way that discipline and punish changed how one understood the very nature, the very drive of humanity. Humanity is on the move again, and the panopticons are watching. And of course, you then get the same bodies. I mean, the dear old EU cranking up the old war horse and trying to work out ways to resist this modern panopticization of the country, of the world, of Europe and the wider world. Exactly the same forces rage against it. The ones that almost understand what it is doing and try to unpick it. So you get these seismic, dystopic, punctuated panopticon events, each one promising a new world, each one actually simply increasing the amount of regulation that what a state can do, each one involving an unholy alliance between a certain set of corporations, be they the insurance corporations that drove genes, the computer lords and billionaires that are driving AI, or years ago, the little microchip, the inventors of the microchip. They all involve an unholy alliance then between a corporation and a state, so that the state feels inclined to give unholy power to the corporation and allow it to enforce in the name of dreams a new form of regulation. Welcome to the panopticon state. The problem is, of course, that all this hubbub, all this eruption of fascism, this new way we are prying into each other's souls, being pried into, blinds us to the world that is actually slipping away from our control. For while we sit and watch each other's arses, it's the world we need to watch. And as the sea rises, wonder what we can do about it.